All right. Well, hello. Welcome to the Dysfunctional Podcast, where we start today dysfunctionally by looking at each other and saying, who's going to start this conversation? We got Nick Nisi here
Hoi
and
hoi.
me, KBall, and we're going to talk today about changes in our development workflows and what we are doing differently. It feels like, I don't know about what your sense is, Nick, but it feels like my dev workflow has changed more in the last 6 months than it probably had in the 10 years before that. But I'm kind of curious what you're seeing.
Same. Mine has definitely changed. I mean, part of that is coming back to reality where I can use Neovim regularly and have fun. But now that I'm back in Neovim, there's no way I'm moving to any of these AI editors that are not Neovim.
All right. Whereas I've been whole hog on Cursor, which has been like the thing that finally brought me into the VS Code world. I have a love-hate relationship with it. I hate the VS Code part, but I do love a lot of the different things that you get from Cursor, in particular their newest agent stuff with some of the latest models. It just blows my mind, and I can share some like what my workflow looks like now. Just bears no resemblance to the writing code that I used to do, but also their like suggestions and inference stuff is just really good.
Yeah. I don't know. Maybe as someone who has never even opened Cursor or seen what it looks like or observed a workflow, I can tell you that you don't need that.
I don't. No, but what I'll tell you. So let me tell you what an example that I just thought was amazing, and it just like kind of once again kind of blew my mind. So last Friday, one of my teammates shared a paper about an interesting technique, research paper, interesting technique people were using for LLM agents, and they had this sort of internal thoughts model, sort of chain of thought plus diary type technique that they were using. It says before you do an answer, like think about your answer, look back at how you've previously thought about things, kind of. And they found in the paper that it led to sort of increased consistency in conversations and like some benefits. And I thought, hey, I'm working on a tool that has an LLM conversational component. What if I integrated that? And so I fired up Cursor and I opened up the agent and I said, hey, I want to build a inner thoughts component, and we call it a middleware that's going to go into our agent and take a look at this document and this document for how we design those middleware. And here's the agent I want to put it in. And I wanted to do these things. I wanted to put this in when we're running a prompt, and I wanted to pull that data back out again from the prompt and put it in the structure, and write me a spec for what that would look like. And I did that in the agent with Claude 3.7 Sonnet thinking, and it thought for a while, and it goes and it looks at the files that I referenced, and it searches a few more files, and then it writes me a spec. And I looked at the spec and I said, well, this is like 80% here, but remove that, change this in this way. Did some of that by hand. And then I said, okay, good, go build it. And it built it. And I looked at it and like maybe did one or two tweaks, but that was about it. Fired up the dev server and tested it, and it worked. And so it was like approximately 20 minutes to go from I just read this interesting research paper with a technique I want to try to I have a working prototype in my development environment that is running, that implements this. And my flow to get there was have a conversation with an LLM about writing a spec, review that spec and edit it, and then tell it to build it.
Mm-hmm. Amazing.
It kind of blew my mind, you know?
Yeah.
It's like, what is this world? Is this what writing software is? I think this is what writing software increasingly looks like. It's understanding your system enough and the documents in your system enough to point the LLM in the right direction. The same way you might like a newer engineer or junior engineer and say, okay, go and do this thing. Before you actually build it, write me a spec about how you're going to do it. So then I can review it and correct it and tell it where it's wrong and like make sure things make sense. And then just tell it to go build the thing. And if you have good linters and tests in place, it can even self-correct. Like one of the things that's really fun to see is like it'll try to build something and it'll be like, oh, the linter's complaining. Let me look at that again. Oh, it didn't work because of this and this. Let me fix that, right? Like it'll just kind of go and spin on its own and figure things out. It's like you have this like term vibe coding. I feel like vibe coding is the prototype version, but the production version is you integrate some amount of like specking and docs and review, and you integrate guardrails like types and unit tests and all those things. But gosh, it's wild. It flies.
Yeah. So I don't disagree with any part of that workflow, honestly. I am curious about it, though, before I ask more deep questions. You said you were doing that with Claude 3.7 Sonnet thinking.
Yep.
Does that mean, like, you're at Claude.ai and doing it all in there? Or is this, like, in Cursor?
It's in Cursor. It's a little side window on the side of my... Right, if you imagine your VS Code interface... which most people are familiar with. All right. Well, imagine your Vim interface where you've got the file menu on the left still, and you have your main text window. Open a little pane on the right that is a conversational chat. Okay. And in that conversational chat, you can select, I want agent mode, which is the default now, and that's what I was using here. You can select which model you want it to talk to. And you type a thing, and you can @reference files to like point it at this context or this context and really like help direct it. But you type it, and then it will go and it will sort of operate and show you what it's doing. It might just spit out some text. It might ask, hey, I want to create any like command line stuff it's going to do. It asks you to run it. So it asks for permission, but it might be like, I need to create these directories or I need to do this thing. But it'll go. And it, because it's an agent mode, it like will do a thing and then it will sort of assess itself and it'll keep going. And so like it uses the lint, it appears to use the linting in VS Code automatically to do it. But it'll also sometimes like be like, all right, can you I wrote you these specs, can you run them? And then run them. And it's like, oh, that failed. Like, let me figure out why. I'm going to insert logging. Oh, okay, run them again. Let's look at what that looks like. And it'll literally like insert the traces that it needs to figure out what's going on. It's banana pants.
That's cool. Okay. Yeah, I'm on board with this for sure. I do it slightly differently, but also very much the same. I just use Claude Code now to do that, which effectively does the same thing, but just from the command line. And I think I talked about this before, but I was blown away by just, asking it to do something, and then it broke a bunch of tests, and then I told it that, and it's like, okay, how do you run your tests? And it just ran them, and then did that in a loop until it fixed them, and then continued on, and cost me $4. But yeah, it's a pretty interesting way to do it. Now to get to the philosophical piece of this, you did say like, is this the future of coding? Is it? Is this as fulfilling?
So
meaning like I know you're gonna come out and say, oh, it gets me to the result faster, and the result's what matters, and I agree with that. I would like playing. I just played The Last of Us just now, like over the past week, and beat part 2 finally because season 2 is right around the corner, and I don't know, I just got to thinking, like, is this like every time I got to something hard, I could just go and reset the encounter and I could do it again. And every time I get to something hard in code, instead of like thinking deeply about it, I might just go ask something to write it for me. And do I actually like roguelike games? Is that, I guess, where I'm coming from with this?
Yeah, I mean, there's so many layers to this question, right? So one, there's like, what's the point? What are we doing, right? Are we trying to achieve, are we doing this as a job where we're getting paid to achieve some outcomes? Are we doing it as a hobby because we enjoy the craft of it? Or are we combining the two? There are still people who do hand woodworking. I have not bought hand woodworked furniture in a long time, right? And so like there is a piece around that. I also do think actually there's like we use writing code for a number of different things. Sometimes we use it to achieve an outcome. Sometimes we use it as a way to try to understand what's going on.
Yeah.
Right. And it is my belief that at least right now, and probably for the foreseeable future, if you're doing serious software that you expect to maintain and evolve over time, you still need to create a solid mental model of how it works. right? So the
Of course.
example that I chose where I was like, I just had this conversation with the LLM to do it, like that worked because I knew our system and I was able to say, okay, I want it to look like this. It'll fit in this place. Here's the correct documents to look up and do on that. And if I hadn't done that, and when I haven't done that and provided context, it like goes off into weird places in left field and like creates slop that is not valuable.
Mm-hmm.
There is this sort of there is a trajectory that it is getting better at figuring things out on its own. And that getting better is a combination of the models themselves getting better, but also the tooling around them, right? Cursor is developing its own set of prompting and techniques for here's how I search and index your code base, and here's how I look for what this is and what that is, and all these different pieces. And so there is like, I was joking about this with one of my teammates, where like there's sort of a world where it does all the interesting stuff, and we end up being the ones that are fighting with why won't Docker boot this image properly, or why won't, right? Like we're the gophers for the stuff that's not well integrated, and that blows as a job. Like I don't want that job.
That's like when LLMs first came out, or like when people started really playing with them, and it's like, look, it can do a whole bunch of art, but it can't do it can't do code very well, or like useful things, and it's slowly getting there. But yeah, it's leaving the slop for us.
Yeah. So to me, I think the hopeful angle of this is like, I think of software as dreams made reality, right? It's like I write software because I enjoy understanding systems well enough to create solutions to them, and also that I like making new things. I like making something that didn't exist before. And from what I can tell, once again, like these things, they don't have judgment. They don't have human decision making. You still have to figure out what is the problem and what do you want to have happen. That hasn't gone away. What's gone away or is going away is a lot of the hands-on keyboard typing out these sort of Baroque syntaxes that we've learned over the years. And I don't know, like I think so long as I'm still getting to like there's at least my experience of this is I still had to do a lot of, how should this fit in the system? How does that actually make sense? What is actually going on here that made it much more that made it work? And that was part of the important thing.
Oh, there we go. Sorry, I don't know. They are...
All right, he's back. Well, I finished my thought, even though you disappeared in the middle. So there's a coherent string there to cut on.
Google Fiber. So I'm not mad by any stretch, but maybe that had something to do with that.
All right. So I think one thing that is going to go away is software engineers who don't think about what are the important problems to be solved. Software engineers who take a task definition and go and implement it. Why would I hire one of them? I can give the same level of task definition. Well,
you'll do it because you like the rustic,
and it
traditional way of doing things, right? That's why you buy handcrafted furniture. There'll definitely be a market for handcrafted software, right? No, I'm joking completely.
I'm not sure there will.
Yeah.
Well, and I don't think I'd hire those people, right? Like, I think there's definitely room for handcrafting software as an individual, as a hobby, to learn. I don't know. So I think there is a question in my mind, which is, like, I do think like the job, what you do most of the time as a software engineer is changing. And then there's a question to ask of like, do you enjoy what the new version of this looks like?
Yeah. I might push
And
back a little on that.
that'll be different for different people.
The job specifically. I think at a higher level, you spend more of your time learning, right? You're just constantly soaking up the new way of doing things, the new paradigms of things. A thing that I keep thinking of is very relevant to us and to me specifically. Like, I'm very excited about TypeScript 7, right? It's going to be rewritten in Go. It's going to be 10 times faster is what they're initially promising here. Right. It's going to run JavaScript at the end of the day, like it always does. But
not to
the
run.
tools will be made faster, and that might unlock some new tooling, right? But then also like new features in there, like I don't know. I don't know where I'm going with this, but like it's a thing on my mind of like, let's say a new feature is coming out into a language, like the pipeline operator, right? I've wanted that operator for a long time because I like the syntax that it affords and the way of restructuring my thinking to do that. By the time we actually get it, am I going to care? Because am I going to be writing software at that low level to actually care? Am I going to care about TypeScript 9 or I don't know, whatever version of Go they're on, or C++ 38 or any of that? Probably not, right? It's going to start becoming just like an implementation detail that you don't care about.
Yes and no, because I mean, I think one of the things that's interesting, and look, we started to talk about workflows, and now we're talking about AI again, which seems to be a trend at the moment. But one of the things that is interesting is like to build maintainable software using AI tools, at least until now, the best practices of software development, right? Decomposing things well, testing, typing, documentation, all of those things make a big impact on the outcome of using an LLM to write software as well. And so some of these pieces, like, operators that make it much easier to express certain types of useful concepts, I think will continue to have an impact on how software is written, whether or not the thing writing the characters is a machine or a human.
I'm hoping so. At the same time, I'm like going full hog into this as well. Like I'm not using like Claude Code or Avanti or any cursor like thing day to day usually. Like I use that for extremely limited things, Claude Code specifically. And it's mostly like, I just made this change. You go and implement a test because I don't want to write the test for it. And it does a pretty decent job. And like I thoroughly review the code, right? I don't just like vibe code those out and not think about it. Because I did let it go one time and it wrote a test and it mocked the function that I was trying to test. So obviously it passed. Yeah. So it is, very
test
dumb,
passed
a lot of the time. Yeah. I'm sure I've done that in the past.
I mean, I've worked with engineers who do that too.
It's a thing. But yeah, I'm having much more success with LLMs in terms of just having conversations about code. I'm a team of one right now, and so I don't really have anyone else to be bothering all day with questions or thoughts, or like it's mostly like spilling out my ideas and trying to get it to validate them. And I like have been tuning a prompt that I attach to it. Like Claude has this concept of projects. So like my project has a custom prompt to it where it's like specifically, do not just go along with what I say. Challenge my assumptions. Look at it from different angles that I'm not thinking of, like things like that, and trying to get it to really jog my memory or my mind into thinking about the right solution rather than agreeing with my terrible solution. Then I go and present that and they're like, well, what are you doing? And I'm having a lot more success with that. It's also pretty cool in that I can almost tell within the first 2 or 3 back and forths with that particular like chat, whether or not this is going to be fruitful or not, because it's very quickly either going to spiral into nothing or it's going to trigger me to write some better things. And then I do rely on it for a lot of the boring cruft, setting up, setting up a lot of boilerplate or whatever, or implementing it mostly, and then I just go and tweak it to actually be good. So I am relying on that, but I still am in the more manual, like, you're going to do it in your window, and then I am going to be the sanitizer that properly brings over the things that should be brought over. And I am not 100% on board yet with it going and making changes, even though, I have Git and everything and I can revert. It's still not fully running in there.
I find, for example, in the Cursor example, the fact that it will make changes in a diff style interface, so I can go through and line by line be like, oh, this is what changed, approve this, what the heck were you doing, reject that. Like, that is much more useful to me than the, like, I have a huge block of code over here that I have to copy
and that's a good thing too. And maybe it's because my only interaction with that has been
but that's
Claude
just me.
Code, and Claude Code keeps you very mindful of just how expensive it's getting. It's like, 30 cents here, 30 cents there, but like, in my mind, I'm just like, I can't spend that, which is ridiculous, right? But I did actually find a tool called Code MCP, and it's really cool that this is where things are going with this. But this is a tool that runs an MCP server locally, and then it gives you a Claude Code like interface, so that I can use it as if it were Claude Code, but instead of actually hitting Claude with an API key and doing all of that, the MCP talks to Claude Desktop and just sends the questions over there. So it's just part of my monthly pro plan.
Yep. So bringing this back around to workflows, we've talked a little bit about sort of core coding workflows and how ours have shifted. It sounds like mine has maybe shifted a little more dramatically, but yours has also shifted a fair amount. What else have you been changing in your workflow
I've been
recently?
getting particularly excited about some tools, and they are explicitly not AI focused. I don't know if we're allowed to talk about that anymore.
I think that's even more exciting to talk about. I'm so sick of AI, and I'm partially because I'm using it literally every day and spending every day trying to figure out how to make it behave reliably and better, which is cool, and that's like cutting edge where we are. But like also, let's talk about some like
Cursor
good old boring
or
tech.
in a command line or wherever. You need to find something. You need to find all instances of this word, and it's not necessarily like something that you're gonna just use like the LSP to go find, or like find all references or anything like that. What do? Get grep. Okay. And that's it?
Get grep.
Okay. So just
Get grep.
Just vanilla grep.
Or grep minus R. Yeah.
Ooh.
If I'm not in a Git repo. Yeah. I'm old school. I mean, if it's really complicated, maybe I'll use a regex version,
like Perl -E something
from back in the day when I mastered regular expressions. But honestly, for most things, Git grep, and maybe it's a Git grep in a pipe. I could often if I've got a lot of stuff, I'll pipe it over to Vim and then go explore it in Vim, or pipe it to a text file.
That's fair. That is
Vim.
mostly what I do, but
that's what I
while I don't alias grep, I do effectively replace grep. Like in Vim, there's a grep command, and you can have it like just type :grep with lowercase g, meaning it's like a built-in, and then you can just go. I've replaced that, so instead of just calling grep, it calls rip grep, which is a Rust improvement on grep. If you've ever used like ACK or the Silver Surfer, or one of those, it's effectively that, but written in Rust. And it's very fast and it's very good, and it has a good configuration file, so you can add your own like file types and stuff. But the main thing that it gives you over grep is like I can filter based on specific things. So I can say like, grep all TypeScript files, and I can explicitly like ignore spec files. Like I added that as a custom thing. So find only in source files, and then do this, and it will give me like, I have it set up in my config to show me like the line that I'm looking for. And then it shows me like a couple lines above and a couple lines below. So I see like a syntax a little bit of where it's at. And I can get an idea of the code that I'm actually searching for. You following so far?
Yeah, I mean, when you were just talking about excluding things, I'm like, that's just a pipe, right? You do grep minus v and pipe it, but
Yeah. You do like
but
with this you do it's RG
surrounding
for rip
syntax
grep.
is actually
and I
quite
do like
cool.
RG dash T and then I can do TS and then I would do dash capital T, which is like the inverse of that, and I would say spec, and that spec is like I have it defined as like any JS or TS file that has .spec before it or .test before it, so it'll just ignore those. And then I can just search for something, I can search for the word foo. And that's pretty cool. And it works most of the time. And I've used that for years, in starting with ACK and then eventually rip grep. I kind of skip the whatever SG, was that Silver Server? No, I don't know. Anyway, I found a new one and I'm absolutely loving it. It's because what's the main problem? Can you think of one main problem when you're searching for like, I don't know, calls to a function, for example? Like if you needed to find everywhere where you call this one specific function.
Yeah, so there's a couple different challenges, right? So there's names that overlap, right? Names where you have if I'm calling a function and I have another function that's like that with arguments or something like that, right? Like that has it extended.
My
That's
solution
probably,
might
I'll start
not
with that.
fix
Is that's
but
what you're thinking of?
The one that I'm
or
thinking of
you have
is
another
like
main problem.
formatting in white space or multiple arguments, like multiple signatures for it. Yeah. So that's like a big pain is like, because
fuzzy
Prettier
matches,
is running
essentially.
automatically and I don't care about what it produces as output because I just trust it. Is it like wrapping arguments to the next line? Is it going to be difficult to find the function call specifically for that because of some weird line wrapping or whatever? Well, I found a new tool and it's called AST-grep. And it is, you pass a pattern.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Because I was going to say you kind of want a semantically aware grep.
So what you do with that is you
grep
pass it
is
a pattern.
Exactly
so I can pass
what
it
I
like
want, I think.
a call to a specific function. And inside the arguments, I can just put like a variable, like $arg or whatever, and be like, these are all the args that are going to be passed to it. I don't care what they are, match around them. And it's going to find not things that match that string that I provided directly, but things that would match the AST that string produces for that language. And so it can be on white space. It can have comments in the middle of it. It can do whatever. If it matches that AST, it's the abstract syntax tree. It's going to return that as a result. And that is absolutely amazing. And I love it.
Okay, wait. So tell me more about this first off. So is it language specific? Like does this specifically for going through TypeScript, or does this work across languages? Or
you can specify a language. You can filter it and say, I only want this language or this language. And it does only work on like a subset of languages. But they have docs on like adding your own as well. I haven't looked into it that deeply. But another cool thing, and the thing that actually got this on my radar was not, you know what I need? A new rip grep replacement. Like yet another grep. That's not what got this on my radar. What I've done in the past for creating code mods is like just been old school. I want to use the TypeScript compiler API and go there. But some of the problems that I'm solving right now at work are not TypeScript specific. I need to change JSON or YAML or TOML or Ruby or name your language here. And the TypeScript compiler API is kind of not good at those other languages. I don't know why. They should focus on that. But AST-grep works across all of those. And it has like a Node API so that you could write scripts with it. And not just for grepping, but for replacing. That's the cool thing is like, here is a string, like a function call.
it's a code mod tool.
Yeah,
is what it is.
exactly.
You're saying. Well, can you write a string replacement, or can you write an AST based replacement? So it's actually just like functionally then translating. You could use the same thing to translate in all these different languages.
Yes, but it has a DSL for writing that to where like when I'm doing this with like JS CodeShift or the TypeScript compiler API, I'm thinking about this in terms of nodes. Like I'm looking for a literal expression that matches this, and then kind of keying off from there and getting its children and things like that. This has like a string-based DSL where I give it like, I'm looking for a function call that looks like this, and it passes in whatever arguments, capture the arguments that it's passing, and I'll rename the string to this, or the function to this, and then pass the same arguments to it. And it's like way simpler of an API to think about rather than having to become an expert on ASTs specifically and the specific types of nodes that you're looking for and the types of properties that those nodes are going to have, and then replacing those. So that's really cool. Because like traversing an AST is one thing. Swapping out nodes for other nodes is a whole nother thing, and it's a pain. So I really appreciate that.
Well, I feel like this probably also does solve my problem of things that look the same but are different, right? Because you're actually able to you're looking at it semantically. You're not just looking at it as a text string.
Yes, it's not going to match on like in a comment where you said foo. It's only going to match on a function call, and not even like the import of the function, but like the function call specifically, because that's what you're matching on.
That's very cool. All right, so that's a new addition to your workflow. I might need to check that out. Though I will say, once again, going back into my who needs actual software using LLMs for everything, like telling the agent, hey, go and rename every instance of this somewhere, it works reasonably well. It's not perfect, but if you've got good linting on your project, it'll work well.
Yeah. See, this is a code mod that I'm looking at shipping to others to run. And I can't trust that they can run AI agents anywhere, let alone whether they have them. So a simple, like it's a couple of lines of as a node module, very easy.
Almost certainly cheaper to run as well.
Yes. But yeah,
actually, one thing that I was talking with somebody who was doing code mods, and they said, yeah, you don't actually want to use the LLM to do the code mods. You want to use the LLM to write the code mod tool and then run the code mod.
Yeah, and ASTs are very well documented. So LLMs know, like you can ask give your JavaScript or whatever your source to the LLM and say, write me a code mod that can find this and replace it with that. It will do a really good job of getting you very close.
Nice. Any other big workflow changes for you recently?
I also have, like, my entire way that I interface with my Mac has changed. I might have talked about this before, but it's so nice that I want to talk about it again. And it's Aerospace. This is an i3 like tiling window manager for Mac. And it's very advanced, and it will frustrate you to no end when you first start using it. But now that it's just like become muscle memory for me, I'm so scared of this upcoming like rumor about Mac and iOS about the big rewrite and design rewrite that it's going to break Aerospace, that like for the first time I might not upgrade on day one because this would destroy me if it stopped working. And specifically, like, it's not that, oh, everything is perfectly tiled and, this browser's taking up half the screen and my editor's taking up the other half perfectly every time. It's not that. It's that you can define workspaces. And you have that in Mac where you can like swipe, 3-finger swipe or 4-finger, I forgot what it is, between like multiple desktops and have everything separated like that. That's not good enough, because if I need to get from the first desktop to the last desktop, I have to swipe through all of the other desktops or go up and then find, it's a lot. But when I have all of my development environment stuff on the D desktop and I just have to hit Alt D and I'm there. And when I'm on a call and I need to quickly switch over so I can unmute, and I just hit Alt Z to get to the Zoom desktop because that's where my Zoom automatically goes. And when I need to get to my productivity desktop where Slack and email and all of the other stuff that's not actually productive, I hit Alt P and I'm there. And then when I need to quickly switch between them, I just do it. And it handles like multiple monitors very well. So I can say like, take the P desktop and put it on my left monitor and always keep it there. I can lock it so it never can leave that one. And it's so nice that everything is where I need it. When I need to jump to something, boom, it's there.
That I've always been terrible about like window management and things like that on my Mac. I mean, I think I'm actually just terrible in general about adopting tools and workflow tools, which is why it's kind of impressive to me that I've actually shifted everything. Like I just lived in Vim and Tmux land for forever.
Yeah.
And so it's amazing that anything has shifted, but I don't know, that does sound nice. Like I can't tell you how many times I've done the game of, all right, which window is the meat window in, right? Like where am I? Where am I talking?
Yeah. It's so good. And there have been other ones for Mac that have come out. There's like Yabai and I can't remember, the Amethyst, I think, is the other one. Yabai was the one I looked at before, and I quickly gave up on it because for any advanced features, you had to turn off system integrity protection on your Mac, which, like, if you're on a corporate Mac, not going to work, right? You just can't do it. And so I didn't like that, but Aerospace does it all. And when it's navigating you between multiple desktops, all of the other desktops, they're not magically put somewhere else or hidden. They're down in the bottom right corner, and they're just like way down to where you can't see them, but they're there, and that's where they're at. And so it doesn't actually break anything else that you're doing. Like if you're familiar with like command tabbing to get to Slack or to get to whatever, that all still works. When you get over to Slack, it's just going to change you over to the desktop that has Slack on it, or the workspace that has Slack on it. And Slack will be there, and you can do that. And you can quickly use Alt Tab or Command Tab to navigate through that. You can use Alt Tab to navigate through it. You can use Raycast to to use the launcher to get to something. Like it's additive, and it doesn't like force you into that, but it is going to force you in terms of like, I'm going to control where things are on the desktop and how much space they take up. So that is something to get used to, and can be annoying. But you can also like configure everything in a TOML file and just say like, for me, for example, 1Password is always a floater. It will never take up space. It will just float on top of other windows. Same thing with messages. Same thing with like different windows from like Raycast and things like that. They'll just be floaters all the time. And you can quickly switch, like toggle things to be floating or not, which is fine. But like you can also heavily script it to when this action happens. Like when I open up terminal, move it over here. Do that.
I wonder, like, there's a piece of this that is connected to something else that I've been thinking about, which is just sort of going back to a thing we talked about early on in this conversation about just feeling like we have to be learning constantly. Mm-hmm. I wonder, like, one of the promises of making software easier to write, which is what a lot of these changes are, is you can have very customized software. You can have you can write your own world. You can script all of your, if you have a window manager, you can script it up yourself. You can do all these things. You don't even have to understand it very much, right? Maybe it's got its like LLM guidelines, and you can open it up in Cursor and say, all right, script it so that this is here and that's there and this is there. Don't even have to understand what's going on. I feel like there's like a human behavioral adaptation limit. Like how do you keep yourself learning those things, adjusting your workflow, taking the time to figure out, oh, I want these things pinned over here and that over there. Like, I just feel like my brain taps out. It's like you worked for 8 hours or you worked for 6 hours. Like you're done. Don't think about customizing your laptop, right?
Yeah, that's how I relax, I guess. I don't know.
You have an evolutionary advantage over me that you relax by doing that stuff, and my brain's like, the fuck? Why are you doing that now?
It also like it's like a periodic thing or like a seasonal thing too, because like for the last 2 weeks, I've just, when I have free time, it's like I'm gonna go play The Last of Us and get through that. Mostly because I wanted to do it before the show came out. But like, yeah, I haven't been doing that, and then like I have other obligations like contract work and things like that I need to get done. And so I actually just made my first commit in more than a month to my dot files today, and I felt pretty good about that. But I've been neglecting it for a while.
I'm cooked. I don't have anything else.
I will ask one question to bring us out. Have you played with Raycast at all? No?
No. I keep hearing that name, and I keep not actually doing it. I was hearing about granola. I wanted to try granola, which is like note taking.
Mm-hmm.
And here's the thing, like coming back to I don't like spending time on updating my stuff. Like I downloaded granola and it's like, oh, your version of Mac OS is too old. You can't do this, right? Because if you update Mac OS, you're going to end up spending hours getting your development environment working again. Or at least I always end up doing that. So I don't, and it's out of date, and then I can't use the latest and greatest. So someday I'm going to upgrade from like, what is my Mac right now? From Mac OS 12.7 Monterey. I'll bring it up to date at some point.
No. 12.7?
That's what it claims. 12.7.6.
For reference, I'm on 15.3.2.
Yeah, but stuff's going to break now when I update it. It always does.
I can't even compute. I don't. Mac OS a new version comes out, like 16 will come out, and like the next day I'll be on it.
And how many things break when you do that?
Mostly 0.
Okay, I don't know what I do differently then, because every time I update my Mac OS, like my dev environment breaks. Like, are you using Homebrew and other things to install stuff?
Yeah, I've got it all scripted. I can go from brand new computer to full dev environment in 20 minutes.
That's probably the difference, because you've spent the time investing in your tools. I don't have the brain space.
You do. It's the time. Oh, yeah, the brain space, I suppose. Yeah.
I find myself fundamentally constrained by mental energy, not time, more than anything. Like, I have lots of time that I could, in theory, be working on that, and my brain just nopes out, and it's like, no, go read a book, or go run and play soccer, or do something else that doesn't require thinking about technology. I mean, in some ways, I feel like I'm not meant to be an engineer, because my brain doesn't, like, technology is not relaxing for me. It's work, and I run out of space for it.
That's fair. I feel like that sometimes too, for sure.
Also, my Mac is freaking out, probably because it's running 12.7 and has been up for 62 days, and Riverside is just like freaking it out.
Dang, 62 days. I don't think I've ever gotten that high.
Well, it's because you update your OS. I'm seriously, right? Like, my system tends to be very stable because I resist updates like that, because they destabilize it.
Man, I can't imagine what things you're vulnerable to from a security standpoint.
There is that, though. Almost nothing. It's pretty much all in the cloud. Like, there's not much that I'm doing locally. Yeah. But yeah,
that's the thing. I never run backups on anything. Like, I don't have local backups at all. The only thing, I literally have nothing, because the important things are in iCloud, like my photos, and they're backed up, or they're in Git and on GitHub, synced to GitHub. So, like, that's why I could destroy my computer and be back up and running in under a half hour, for sure.
The only exception for me for that is the dev environment, right? Like, all the different things that need to be installed to run stuff.
You do have that scripted, or you don't?
I don't.
Ooh.
No. I mean, many of the repos, like, they know how to install themselves and things like that, but like, I don't have all of my dependency libraries that things depend on, or whatever is scripted. What version of Homebrew packages are there? Any of that? Probably should.
Yeah.
That would be valuable.
Do you at least back up your Cursor rules file?
It lives in the repo.
Okay.
Anything that lives in the repo is good, right? Like, I don't have a problem with that. And like, it's probably fine. I don't know. Maybe this weekend I'll upgrade my OS, and then I can time myself how long till I have a working environment, and I'll come back and tell
Oh
you.
no, I don't. I'm scared of that. You'll be totally borked, and then you'll come back just ranting at me. This version of iDVD doesn't work anymore, and I blame you.
Could be. But if anyone ever feels like they're dysfunctional because they don't update their software at good time, you're in good company.
Yeah, I don't think that there's. I just do it for the. Like, usually it's like I get in the hype of like WWDC features, and I'm like, yes, I want that, whatever it is. And being in the Apple ecosystem is nice because you get, the features that are shared to the phone as well. Like, I don't know,
Yes.
iMessage, whatever, or photos, whatever. So it's less about my dev environment specifically.
Yeah, and that all seems to work. Plus, I mean, maybe I don't need a dev environment anymore because I'm just running everything through the LLM. Who knows? That's a lie. You really need, like, to get it to work well, you've got to have the LSP and all the linting working and everything nice. Otherwise, it doesn't get the guardrails and the feedback loops that it needs.
I'm calling it here. This time next year, you're going to be all about how you just sit at an empty desk with nothing but an Alexa on it, and you go.
I don't do the voice stuff yet, but maybe I should. I don't know. I mean, I think I have almost quit the tech industry like 5 times, so we'll see. But it's fun times. Things are changing very quickly in kind of a positive way. I'm also still trying to get my Riverside to show me your face again, because I can hear you and it's all working, but the UI is frozen. So hopefully this is making it up to you okay.
Well, now that I know you're on macOS 12, I am surprised it ever worked.
I'm telling you. Well, the thing I got to do now, I think, is reboot, and maybe it won't come back up, and I'll have to upgrade the OS. We'll see. All right. Anything else we want to talk about today?
No, I think, yeah, we're both we're both on to something. We're not staying on macOS 12 when it comes to how we develop. So that's good. I think that we're keeping up with it, and I think that there's still a lot. Like, it's still very much in flux right now.
Oh gosh, and it's uncomfortable, right? I don't know. Maybe it's more comfortable for you because you're used to investing in your tooling, but like the level of change in how this stuff is working, just like it's exciting, but it's also extremely disturbing.
Yeah, and I'll close by just saying that it's also unbelievably exhausting because
Yes.
it's the non-determinism of it. It's like, I know the problem I have to solve. Is the AI weather going to be good today, or is it going to be bad? And I'm just going to have a bad time trying to rephrase things to properly get what I want. And that's exhausting.
Truth.